Hello all, and welcome to my sanctuary. Today we are starting a new series on this channel that I am calling Angelic Advice. This series will differ from our other content, Angelic Encounters, in that it will focus on more general GMing advice, frequently asked questions, and so on. While Angelic Encounters will continue to showcase different TTRPG systems and encourage GMs and players to try and explore the many different systems that make up our hobby. For our first episode of Angelic Advice, I have decided we will tackle a totally non-controversial topic.
But that's a joke, boy. You missed it. Went right past you. You gotta keep on your toes.
Yes, today's episode we are going to be covering the process of fudging dice as a GM. This is a topic that gets many people's emotions high, but I'm going to try and approach the topic from the most neutral position possible, explore both the arguments for and against it being an acceptable practice, and at the end I'll go over my actual feelings on the matter and what I do in my games. Now, let us begin. To start, we'll need to define our terms. What fudging dice means, what is fudging, what isn't. In this video, I am defining fudging dice to mean two things. One, the game master rolling the dice and ignoring the results in favor of what they would prefer. This includes changes both in favor of or against the player characters. Turning a monster's critical hit into a normal hit, or a miss, is fudging, but so too is turning a miss into a hit, or a failed save into a success, or any similar mechanics. The second type of fudging that I am including in this definition is when a game master changes a mechanical number on the fly to adjust the level of success or failure of the PCs. When you add or subtract HP from the monster in play, behind the scenes, when you change the DC on a trap or saving throw or skill check after the party has rolled, when you change how a monster's attack or traits work on the fly. If you are changing these hidden values during play instead of during prep, then this is also fudging for the definition of this video. If you disagree with that, then please make your comments known below. But for the purpose of this video, that will be included in the definition of fudging. So why fudge? What arguments can be made in favor of this practice? Whether we are fudging by ignoring our own dice behind the screens or changing these static numbers on the fly, fudge is typically going to be taking one of two forms. One, helping the players by making things easier for them. Or two, helping our monsters, making things harder on the players. Let's look at the first category, helping the players. Why would a GM fudge in favor of the players? Game masters who do this are operating from a philosophy that TTRPGs are not a competition between the GM and the player. This is a stance I agree with. The GM does not win by killing the PCs. On the contrary, they exist to facilitate the adventure. And, in the ideal case, in many RPGs, the goal of the GM is to lose with style, as I like to say, especially if you're playing something like 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons. GMs who are fudging in favor of the PCs are trying to prevent an undesired outcome, such as the death of one or more PCs, avoid a total party kill in an extreme situation, maybe spare an allied NPC from a grisly fate, give the PCs another chance at success, prevent an inopportune failure from derailing an adventure. In effect, they are trying to curate an experience for the players. GMs who do this sometimes say that they are trying to reduce randomness and keep the game fun for the players. Some GMs cite keeping this option open to them reduces the stress of adventure design. They don't need to worry about accidentally overtuning an encounter for their players. If the Iron Golem proves too tough, they can knock 50 HP off, or ignore its critical hits, or some such, allowing the PCs to survive what they would perceive as a GM mistake. The other side of this coin is using fudging to increase the difficulty, giving a monster extra HP on the fly, or not tracking the monster's HP at all, or increasing the number rolled by a monster by modifying its bonus, ignoring the face on the die. Ooh, that's a critical hit. Now, if a GM is doing this to win an encounter, or to kill a particular player character, then I think everyone across the hobby is in agreement that this is bad, and not worth defending. However, some GMs will do this in an attempt not to win the encounter, but to delay losing, to, as I said earlier, lose with style. They want to exhaust the PC's resources. In effect, they want to make the PC's wins more costly, in terms of HP, consumables, spells, other resources. Or simply make the fight take longer. They simply, again, are trying to curate the experience for their players. A GM might feel it would be dissatisfying if the big bad evil guy died in the first round because he happened to roll bad on initiative, the Gloomstalker Assassin Battlemaster did 150 damage in one turn, and then the Hexadin rolled a crit and did another 125 damage, and then the rest of the party also got their turns, and now your big bad is just dead without an action. So maybe I'll add 100 hit points to his total. So it'll go another round. In this case, the GM is fudging against the players, but their intention is still to improve the experience for the players. The logic being that the battle, and thus the game, will be more fun if the GM fudges things in this way. Letting the bad guy get off a few more attacks, a powerful spell, before ultimately being defeated. So, to conclude, the arguments we have for fudging dice boil down to one. It lets you avoid undesired outcomes to preserve your game's story. 2, it reduces randomness, keeping content or keeping things as you expect them to go. 3, it simplifies adventuring design. Having this tool in your back pocket allows you to not worry about creating unbalanced encounters. And 4, curate the experience in combat for a more satisfying battle. These are the arguments for using fudging dice in your RPGs as a game master, but now let's look at the arguments against this practice. Why you should not fudge dice. 1. Many would say that it is cheating. This is a controversial point. Almost all RPGs have some version of Rule 0 at the beginning of the book, which states a game master can alter any rule in the book at any time. But that doesn't change the fact that we have the rules for a reason. Rules say that if a monster rolls a 20, then that's a critical hit. And then that hit does this much extra damage. So if you ignore that, you are ignoring the rules. You wouldn't let a player just tell you that they rolled a 20 when the die said a 2. So why is it okay when the game master, who's really just a different player, albeit in a different role, does it? 2, it breaks the point of the game. Why do we roll dice? We roll dice because the outcome is uncertain. The game world is chaotic. It's filled with chances, opportunities, creatures with opposed intentions. The dice, alongside the rules including static values like bonuses and HP, serve as our oracle into this game world, revealing the truth and the outcome of our actions. If I, as a player, am being attacked by an iron golem, then that's a result of decisions that I have made previously. I decided to go into this dungeon. I decided to enter this room the way I did. I decided to stand in front of the party instead of running away. I decided to hit the iron golem with my magic sword last turn. Sure, some of these actions might have had other roles associated with them. A gather information check back in town might have told me whether or not an iron golem was known to wander this dungeon. A stealth check might have failed to let me hide when we heard their metal footsteps. but the actions taken were still my decisions. I tried to hide instead of run, for instance, and I took those actions full in the knowledge that monsters attack people, and when a monster attacks, they might hit or they might miss, and they might critically hit. I have weighed the chances and decided to take the risk because I'm here to play the game. If the GM decides to fudge the dice so I can't die, then what is the value of every choice I made up to that point? Did anything even matter? 3. It's unnecessary. Many of the goals of those in favor of the practice can be accomplished through other means which are objectively within the GM's control, without fudging a die roll. Details vary depending on the system, of course. In something like 5e, whether or not a monster continues attacking a downed character is entirely up to the GM. If the Iron Golem, to paraphrase Matt Colville, says, steps on your head, or not, that's the GM's call. If a crit takes down a character, the Golem might turn their attention to another character. In a system where you die at 0 HP, or wounds can be more lasting, then ignoring a down PC might not matter as much, but the GM still has control over who is targeted in the first place. The Iron Golem may use its attack to crush the party's torchbearer, or the wizard's familiar, or even a pack animal. A creative GM can even come up with a justification for nearly any action the monster takes. Angered by the bright light, it smashes towards John the torchbearer. Seeing the scurrying familiar underfoot, it tries to step on it. Charging towards the largest intruder, it attacks a silhouette of the pack mule laden with supplies. Furthermore, intelligent monsters may have desires other than just killing the party. A vampire that is entirely capable of TPKing the party may simply incapacitate the first one, and then make demands, holding their life as leverage. Many systems allow PCs to deal non-lethal damage or otherwise take prisoners. Monsters can do the same. The same can be said for unintelligent monsters as well. The owlbear doesn't necessarily want to kill the entire party to a man. It might simply take out the nearest character and then try and intimidate the rest to leave. It just wants to defend its territory, after all. It's happy to establish dominance and then let you all run away. This may or may not mean the loss of one PC sacrificed to fill the monster's belly, but it avoids a TPK and the campaign continues. In the case of the opposite situation, where the PCs have totally defeated a fight that the GM expected to be difficult, then you could just let that be the outcome. The party worked to get that surprise round, or the paladin got lucky with that crit, or the dice just came up in their favor. Let them have their win. The players will be happy for a win, and they'll be distracted with the loot they get afterwards. And if you just underestimated the damage-dealing potential of the party, that's information for you to account for in your next adventure. Bad planning on your part, or ignorance of their abilities, is no reason to punish their successes. BBEG should have more minions, or maybe you just make sure that the next boss has more HP, better armor class. If the bad guy fell for a trap the player character set, that's even better. They'll feel clever and like they earned a real victory. And lastly, it's unfair. The GM isn't supposed to be the one dictating the story. Sure, the GM creates the scenarios. They create the location, creates the monsters, the NPCs, and their desires. But the players create their characters and their motivations. And the story is not what the GM plans. The story is what happens when the characters meet the scenario, and the choices and random chance, the dice, create the result. The story only exists after the fact. If the GM is throwing out the dice and the rules to dictate the story to be what they want, then they are overstepping their bounds. They are dictating what the story is on their own. If you feel it's okay for the GM, the Game Master, to decide arbitrarily how the story goes, whether or not a villain escapes, or whether or not a PC lives or dies on their own, then why isn't it okay for the other players? Why can't a PC decide that the story would be better if they killed the villain in one turn? Or, actually, that they succeeded on that saving throw? Or if they never missed an attack roll, when it really matters? And if you are okay with the players making such choices, then okay. Why use dice at all? It sounds like you can have a very fun time with a collaborative novel writing experience, or scripting some freeform RP together. You don't need rules where you are going. To summarize the arguments against fudging, we have 1, it's cheating. You are ignoring the rules of the game. 2, it's contrary to the point of the game and why we are using dice in the first place. 3, it's usually unnecessary. You have a lot of control as the game master over what the NPCs do, and if you want to avoid a TPK, you probably have other tools. And 4, it's unfair and it oversteps the GM's role into space that is outside of what the GM should be able to determine arbitrarily. We're now going to look, so those are the arguments against. We've already looked at the arguments for. Now I'm going to talk about what it is I do at my actual table. Now I've tried to be unbiased in presenting the arguments for and against the practice, but now I'm going to discuss my actual stance and what I do in my games. As a game master, I am fundamentally opposed to fudging dice in my games, at least insofar as it comes to any roles that directly impact the player characters and their actions. All my games these days are played online using virtual tabletops, such as Roll20 or Foundry. And in all my games, I make all my rolls for attacks, saves, defense rolls, damage, etc., depending on the system, openly in front of the players in the VTT chat window. If my monster rolls a lucky or unlucky roll, be it an attack, a save, a defense, they'll see it immediately, the exact same time I see it. There's no opportunity for me to fudge anything. The monster rolled a 12 plus 6, that's an 18, as you can see. What is your armor class again? I don't tell my players the monster's bonuses or skill levels ahead of time, but they are basically always revealed as soon as they come up. If I'm running GURPS, first time a creature needs to make a dodge roll, the players will see they rolled X against Y dodge. If I'm running D&D 5e, first time a monster rolls a wisdom saving throw, it'll reveal to them they rolled X number with a Y bonus for Z total. I'll know if they got lucky or not, and I have no way of fudging anything. That said, I do still have a lot of power over the situation. As I described earlier in this essay, I can always control a monster's actions. Who it attacks and when, what action it takes, what spell it casts, what strategy it takes, and I do use those decisions to curate a fight. In my D&D games, most monsters won't target a downed PC, unless there are no other targets available. And if a monster will act contrary to this, I give them a special trait called Ruthless, and I inform the PCs of this the moment the initiative is rolled, so that they know this fight is for real. One exception to this always open rolling in my games is for random tables. I do run games sometimes with random treasure or random encounters. Not every campaign I run, but some of them. And in those games, I do roll such things in secret. At least some of the time. And I don't consider this to be cheating. We'll absolutely admit that this may seem hypocritical to some. If I said in my prep that this is the Wandering Monster table and I roll a 6, then decide to use something else from the table, isn't that the same thing as fudging an attack roll? And sure, it's similar. My argument would be that it's the GM's purview to determine what things exist in the setting, and for me such random tables are designed to serve as inspiration to the GM, not to dictate to them. It's like that one trick. They say if you can't decide between two choices, flip a coin. Because the moment the coin is in the air, you'll know which side you hope it lands on. And then you go with that, regardless of what the coin flip says. If I roll a Wandering Monster and I get skeletons again, and I'm disappointed I didn't roll the Minotaur, and I'm going to use the Minotaur. And it's the same with treasure tables. Sometimes I roll something random and it's inspiring. Other times it's not, and that's okay. It might inspire the players in ways I didn't think. And if not, and they sell it, and it's fine. +1 battle axes that they really can't use exist, and sometimes they find them. But sometimes I want to put my hand on the scale and make sure something fun is present, or that something unfun isn't. That's what I do as a GM. And as a player is what I would want from my game master. I don't want to feel like the DM or the GM has dictated the story for me. If the dice say the Mind Flayer eats my brains, then as long as the GM was playing fair, there's always something I could have done differently. And even if I make no mistakes...
It is possible to commit no mistakes and still lose. That is not a weakness. That is life.
So the title of this video is Angelic Advice. So what advice do I have to offer? Well, obviously I would suggest you do things my way and roll in the open. But if you are a current GM that fudges dice, either on occasion or even frequently, I've heard many GMs say the entire purpose of a GM screen is to hide their rolls, which is not something I have ever believed. I often threw my dice in the open even when I ran in person, using the screens just to hide my notes and the map. But if you are such a GM, understand that I'm not here to attack you. I don't hate you, I just want to provide some angelic advice. My advice then is to consider two things. One, what is the purpose of dice in your game? Why are you rolling dice if they don't matter to you? Two, if you have to fudge dice frequently to get things going in the direction that you want, are you maybe playing the wrong system? System matters. No matter what some people will say, system matters. The rule set you use to determine what things are left to chance, what level of narrative control a player or GM has at any given moment. If you find yourself having to fudge numbers in D&D 5e all the time, perhaps the system isn't giving you the kind of narrative you want. You might be happier playing something like Dungeon World or Fate. Both are excellent systems. I have combat examples of both on this channel in my How to Slay a Goblin series. Or perhaps you would be more interested in something that completely eschews the dice altogether. Something such as Chubo's Marvelous Wish-Granting Engine, which replaces dice with fixed skill levels and spending a limited supply of will to accomplish your intentions. Chubo's is really not my cup of tea. I won't ever cover it on this channel, but I know some people who absolutely love it. For me, my philosophy is that I will never ask for nor make any die roll that I will not respect the results of. As this is the last trick you have as a GM. No roll happens unless you will it to happen. And the stakes of that roll are always up to you. If you want to have the PCs overhear a conversation, you don't have to ask for that stealth roll. Or if you do, you can narrate them being caught after they hear the vital tidbit. If you want them to recognize the portrait they found of the late king, just tell the PC that has the history skill, be that a history proficiency or a skill in whatever RPG you're playing, just tell the PC with that skill that they recognize them. Maybe ask for a roll for additional supplementary information. If you aren't willing to let the monster kill a character, why are you having the monster attack them? Is there something else it could do instead? Growl menacingly, try and just drive them away. And if they keep pushing at that point, well then, maybe they have it coming. So to summarize, my angelic advice is this. If you find yourself ignoring the rules, why do you have those rules? Maybe you need different rules. Be it homebrew or a different system. Don't cheat the rules, change them. Let the story come organically from the rules you use. Let the story be found, not dictated. And if you were looking for other systems that might do what you want, check out my Angelic Encounters series here on this channel. I have combat examples from many systems in my How to Slay a Goblin series. I also have a combat example from Torchbearer, which is a very different system than you've probably experienced before. So check out those videos, and consider this my advice. Thank you for watching. If you're interested in learning about other systems, I have several combat examples in various systems in my How to Slay a Goblin series on this channel. You can check my previous video on conflict in the Torchbearer system for example of how a system affects your story. My name is Kaybe Angel. I am a professional game master. If you're interested in playing a game with me, check out my page on Start Playing, link in the description. I may have games with seats available whenever you're watching this, or feel free to message me on there to request a notification when I start up a new campaign. You can check out my Twitch, where I stream games, both TTRPG sessions and video games, which are all archived on my other YouTube channel. Links to both, along with my social media, is in the description. If you've enjoyed this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. There will be more TTRPG content soon, and every little bit helps in the algorithm, as we want to see this channel grow. Have a good night, everyone.